Pontius Pilate never slept well during Passover. There were all those people crowding into the city, coming from the surrounding areas, camping out in the countryside. As he understood it, this was one of 3 annual festivals that every Jewish male was required to attend. But often they skipped over those other 2 in order to attend this one, the big one, Passover. It was kind of a Jewish Independence Day celebration as they remembered how God had brought them out of their captivity in Egypt. The priest would spend most of the day slaughtering lambs in the temple precincts, and then people would smear the blood on the lintels and doorposts of their homes. They would gather that night and share a feast and tell the story about how the angel of death had come through the land of Egypt, striking down every firstborn in each of those households, except for the houses that were marked by the blood of the Lamb. Those were protected from the angel of death. And the next day, when they woke up in a land, a whole nation weeping for its lost loved ones, Pharaoh begged God's people to go, to leave that place and begin their long journey to freedom, which is just what they did. Every year since then, they had celebrated Passover as if it were the first one. Emotions ran high. Patriotic fervor was at a fever pitch. And these days, there was always talk of revolution, of running the Romans out of the country and reclaiming Israel's independence. It made Pilate a little nervous, to be truthful, but mostly it was just annoying. All those people, day after day, thronging the city's streets, staying up through the night, laughing, shouting, making noise until the wee hours of the morning. Pilate, because he was the governor, was supposed to keep the peace. And so every year he made his way up to Jerusalem from his comfortable home in Caesarea Maritima down on the Mediterranean coast. He came to stay for a week and to sleep on that lumpy mattress in the governor's quarters, right next to the temple precincts, the noisiest part of town. He always had trouble sleeping, and he had tossed and turned through a sleepless night and had only just dropped off when he heard a knock at the door. "What is it?" he asked. "Sir, beg your pardon, sir, but we have a situation." Pilate got up and fumbled for his robe, but the sun was just coming up. What could possibly be so important at this time of day? "What is it?" he said, yanking the door open. "Sir, it's the high priest. He claims he's got someone out here who says he's the king of the Jews." "King of the Jews," Pilate muttered. What is that? Somebody they crown king of the Passover festival? They put him on a throne, put a crown on his head, a scepter in his hand, and then carry him through the city streets. Is that what this is? These Jews and their odd little customs. Still, there were so many of them. If they got it in their heads that they had a new king, someone beside Caesar, things could get out of hand. He'd better find out what they wanted. "All right," he said. "Tell him I'll meet him in the briefing room." "Sir, that's a problem, sir." "What?" "Well, sir, he says he can't come into your headquarters because you're a Gentile, sir. Would make him ritually unclean, sir. Wouldn't be able to eat the Passover feast, sir." "What?" "That's what he said, sir. Ritually unclean. He's waiting for you with the others right out there in the courtyard." Pilate groaned. "Give me 10 minutes, he said, 10 minutes. And he closed the door. When he stepped out into the courtyard, he found the whole Jewish council out there, the 70 elders who made up the Sanhedrin. This must be important. But the prisoner had already been turned over to the guards. Pilate had sneaked a peek at him on his way out to the courtyard. He didn't look like much of a threat. "What's this all about?" Pilate asked. "What accusation do you bring against this man?" He's telling everybody he's the Messiah, they said. The Messiah? What is that? The King of the Jews, they said, and then one of them stepped forward to explain. For years now, decades, centuries, we have been waiting for the Messiah to come, a king who will arise in Israel, a descendant of David, the greatest king who ever lived. And this new king, the anointed one, the Messiah, he will be like David. He will fight the battles of Israel. He will drive out our enemies. He will restore our independence. He will extend our borders. He will usher in an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. And this man, Pilate said, he's your Messiah? No, of course not, they said. But he claims to be the Messiah. He's getting people all stirred up. If you're not careful, you'll have a revolution on your hands. I don't know, Pilate said. This sounds like a religious matter to me. Why don't you take him yourselves and deal with him? With all due respect, they said, this man is calling himself a king. That's a political matter. If he is the king of the Jews, then Caesar is not. That sounds like insurrection, doesn't it? Insurrection. Now that was serious. Insurrection was punishable by death. The Roman Empire could only have one emperor. All right, Pilate said with a sigh, I'll talk to him. Pilate took his time, decided that if he was going to be up anyway, he might as well bathe and dress and have some breakfast. He was just finishing up, still wiping the bacon grease off his fingers when they brought Jesus in. He looked the prisoner up and down. Didn't seem to be anything remarkable about him, just another Jewish peasant. Except for the way this man met his gaze without blinking, as if they were equals. So, Pilate said, is it true? Are you the Messiah, the King of the Jews? Do you ask me this on your own? Or did someone else tell you about me? Jesus said. How would I know anything about you? Pilate said. How would I know about the Messiah? I'm not a Jew, am I? Your own people have turned you over to me, the chief priest himself. What have you done?